In a dark, dark land, there was a dark, dark forest. And in that dark, dark forest, there was a dark, dark hole. And in this dark, dark hole, there lived some dwarves. Say hello to your new home.
We've stopped by the Paradox Loft here at GDC, where there are lots of indie games, and Zeal Game Studios are actually showing off 2 games here. And we just seen Red Frontier, and now we're moving on to a game of Dwarves, a game that was announced a couple of months back. But now we're finally getting to see the game in action, and we're really getting... I actually got a little bit of hands-on with it here. So for those who are unfamiliar, what kind of game is a game of Dwarves?
Game of Dwarves is one of these, if you remember the classical management games of the 90s, like Dungeon Keeper and Theme Hospital. It's kind of a throwback to those kind of old games, not to the games in particular, but the genre of management games. And we have tried to capture the essence of those games more than their actual gameplay. So you control this settlement of dwarfs, and you provide food and sleep and work for various dwarfs, and you dig, of course.
And we also got to see a little bit about the overworld and what the, sort of the concept is for the game. Could you tell us a little bit about the story, the background, and what you're doing there?
Absolutely. That's the campaign map you're talking about, and we have this. The dwarfs earlier they ruled almost the entire world. And then they were pushed back by the evil mages in a great magic war of some kind. And it's your task to reclaim your old country, so to speak. So you set out on a military campaign where you collect magical crystals to defeat the evil mage.
All right. And one of the interesting things is that it's actually the overworld sort of is in play while you're digging down and creating that sort of base for the dwarves. Can you tell us a little bit how that works?
Yeah, each level has its own game world, so to speak. It's at randomly generated, really large space of resources and dirt and enemy rooms with caves and stuff. And you get to start on a small little room with a handful of dwarves, and you get to build a settlement. So you dig downwards and you exploit the earth of resources, and you fight enemies, and you... It kind of depends on how you want to play as well, because you could try to avoid enemies and just build small cave-ins and be very careful when you build. Or you could be very aggressive and just really plow through the earth, not caring what you encounter. And then you'd have to have the military power to back that up, but it's also a possibility. It comes down to how you want to complete the levels.
And then there's also that strategic layer of where you place certain things in your base and how you sort of build a base to sort of create chokeholds and things like that, and to keep your workers safe and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, because since you dig the tunnels, you know where from the enemies are going to come. Since they can't really walk through the earth, they will walk through your tunnels. So if you know that this area might later become a potential enemy zone, you could place traps there. Or you could place a wall that makes it so that your workers doesn't wander into that area unsupervised. So that you could try to keep your dwarves safe by building in certain patterns and stuff like that. But you also need to make sure that they have access to food and beds and stuff like that. So you can't just wall them in, because then they'll starve.
No, who would ever want to do something like that in a management game?
Well, you should see some of our playtesters. I've seen a lot of people build walls. Oh, I can build walls, and they build walls everywhere. And I'm like, you stand over their shoulder and you say, but they can't reach their food now. And then slowly the dwarves starve to death. It's really sad to see.
Maybe there's an achievement for that.
There might be. I'm gonna write that down.
So we got to talk. We touched a little bit on the classes and sort of the thing, but basically, and we haven't talked about that. But the king is what you need to keep alive all the time. Otherwise, it's game over.
Absolutely, it's sort of like your avatar in the game. You play as the prince, king of the settlement, and he is from the beginning a quite passive character. He can't really do much. He can't even get his own food. And then
what king would get their own?
Why? I'd rather starve than get my own food. But as you progress in the game, you will earn influence points that you can use to level your king up. And then you can specialize him either as a researching king, a productive king, or a warrior king. So that by the end of the game, he will be either this really good researcher that helps the settlement progress, or this really badass warrior king that charges the front lines with your other dwarves fighting stuff. So it also helps heighten the way you play the game kind of feeling.
And what's the road like ahead, and sort of when are you aiming to be finished with the game?
Well, we're going into alpha quite soon, in a month or two. So we're aiming for a Q3 release, and I think we might hit that, so to speak.
All platforms?
PSN and PC, not Xbox, sadly enough.
A game of dwarves!